Welcome to Veteran Resource Podcast, where you will meet nonprofit organizations focused on improving the lives of veterans and their family members. Here is your host, Jeremy Paris.
Welcome to the VAP family of podcasts.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 45 of the Veteran Resource Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Paris. And if you're just now finding this podcast, what we do here is we interview a different veteran-focused nonprofit every single week so that veterans out there can find out what organizations are available to them, what programs and what opportunities they have for them and their family members. So welcome. Before we get into this week's episode, I just wanted to talk to you real quick about the DC video shoot-off, which you probably remember from almost a year ago. Episode 3, I had Maureen Stewart on, and she was talking about the DC video shoot-off that was happening last year. Well, it's coming around again, so you can refresh your memory if you want to and find out everything about that by going back and listening to episode 3, which you could find at veteranpodcast.com/003. And you can look in the show notes and follow the link to get over there. And you can also connect with Maureen Stewart in the VAP community, which you can find at veteranartistprogram.org/community. And if you want to be a part of it this year, then reach out to Maureen and let her know. And also, they're looking for people that want to get involved with helping out with the coaching and different aspects. And if you happen to be a video professional with an emphasis on storytelling, then I'm sure they could use your help, and definitely get over and talk to Maureen in the VAP community. Okay, on this week's episode, we have Sam Pressler from Armed Services Arts Partnership, and this is a great episode. You are really going to enjoy this one. Sam Pressler is the founder and executive director of the Armed Services Arts Partnership, or also known as ASAP, and a 2015 Echoing Green Global Fellow. Under Sam's leadership, ASAP launched the only stand-up comedy class for veterans in the United States and the largest writing group for veterans in Virginia. Sam graduated Phi Beta Kappa and Summa Cum Laude from the College of William and Mary in 2015, where he was a Ewell Award recipient, McGlennon Scholar, and TEDx Innovative Thinker. His efforts with ASAP have been covered by CNN, ABC News, BBC, Washington Post, NPR, The Military Times, Stars and Stripes, Soldiers Magazine, and Task and Purpose, among others. All right, let's jump right into the interview with Sam. Sam, welcome to the Veteran Resource Podcast. How you doing today?
Good. How are you?
It's been an incredible day for me. Great day.
Very happy for you.
So the very first thing I want to find out from you, Sam, is kind of just the elevator pitch for your organization.
Of course. So what the Armed Service Arts Partnership does is build communities for veterans around the arts. And we do this by offering 8 to 12-week classes across a variety of art forms. But the main ones that we focus on are stand-up comedy, improv comedy, creative writing, the visual arts, and music. And what we hope to do through these classes is essentially hit 2 points of impact. On one side, we're looking at the individual veteran. And through our programs, we believe that the individual veteran can increase their confidence, their communication skills, develop their artistic skills and expression, and ultimately find some healing benefits through the process among a community of fellow veterans. And we believe that helps that individual veteran better reintegrate into society and civilian life. On the other side, all of our classes end with public performances, publications, and exhibitions. And we think this really hits at the civilian-military divide, where you have 2% of the population that has served in Iraq and Afghanistan, 7% of the overall population are veterans. And we are able to use these performances as a really non-stigmatized medium to bring the civilian community in and really have an honest conversation about the military and veteran experience, and hopefully increase the capacity of these local communities to facilitate the reintegration of their veterans. In a nutshell, what we hope to do, a lot of little pieces involved along the way, but that's the high level.
Very cool. And we're going to dive pretty deep into all of that. But before we do, I wanted to get a little bit about your background.
Of course. So I'm kind of an outsider to the space. To look at it from two angles, I am not a veteran. Both my parents were born on military bases, on Air Force bases. So I'm a once removed military family, but I'm not directly from a military family either. And I'm not really an artist. I think the closest thing I could say is stand-up comedy, and if you talk to my girlfriend or any of my friends, I'm not that good at that either. So I really came at this when I was a student at William & Mary. I graduated from William & Mary in 2015, but when I was a student there, I got connected to the work as I was working on a government paper, specifically for my major. I was on the Veterans Claims Backlog, and in setting the scene for the paper on the backlog, I learned a little bit more about some of the challenges in the veterans' mental health space. And I think what really hit close to home for me were the numbers around suicide. At the time, 22 a day was what people were using. We don't refer to that. We don't think that's a very accurate or useful number. But there are now, higher suicide rates among veterans. And It hit close to home because I had, when I was in high school, my uncle committed suicide. Wow. I saw the impact that he was not a veteran, but I saw the impact that had not only on my family, but really on the entire community, those ripple effects. I couldn't wrap my head around the impact that it was having nationally. So as a student at William & Mary, pretty naive, I was just thinking, what can we do to engage? We have these incredible resources. We have professors who are, the top of their fields, oftentimes in creative avenues. We have students who are really itching to engage with the local community. And we have venues that are, top notch and available on the weekends. And as you know, being in Hampton Roads, you're kind of in the military and veteran mecca of the East Coast. So it was a lot of things lined up that allowed our program to form down there.
Interesting. So, yeah, I was wondering about that. Without being a veteran and not fully into the arts as much as you probably are, but you feel you are, that you would go on to start this organization. And it sounds like it's working really well.
Yeah, and so it's something that started off. We started with a partnership with the Veterans Writing Project, bringing them down to William & Mary, doing their 2-day creative writing seminars on campus for the local veterans. And what we learned really quickly was how much demand there were for the arts among veterans in Hampton Roads, and really even further, how much demand there was for kind of continuous engagement in those arts. So we offered 3 seminars my junior year at William & Mary. All 3 seminars we ended up filling to full capacity and having wait lists for. So you saw huge demand just from the veterans there. Then we did post surveys, and the big point of feedback that we received was that those in the seminars really enjoyed the opportunity to express themselves, develop their skills, and really be among a community of fellow veterans. They wanted to know what was next, what more they can do. And that led me, prior to my senior year, which was the 2014-2015 academic year, to draft the concept of what became the William & Mary Center for Veterans Engagement. And the mission of that organization is very similar to what we're doing right now with the Armed Services Arts Partnership, but it's to offer these continuous opportunities for veterans to engage in the arts. And so my senior year, that year, through the William & Mary Center for Veterans Engagement, we launched the Hampton Roads Veterans Writing Group, which now has over 100 active members. It grew very quickly. It's one of the largest writing groups for veterans in the country. We did a collaboration with Music Corps based out of Walter Reed to launch one of the first classes in the country where musically gifted students taught the guitar and piano to veterans in the local community. And kind of full circle to my initial interest, we launched Comedy Boot Camp, which, according to my Google search knowledge, is the only stand-up comedy class for veterans in the country right now. And we did all of that my senior year. And again, all of this was responding to the demands of the local community. It wasn't us projecting ideas on them. It was just really reacting. And it got to the point with my senior year where I was thinking, okay, I was a government and finance double major. I was like, I could go down a very traditional path, or the question was, would I regret not seeing this through? And I realized I would regret it. And I applied for a fellowship from the Echoing Green Foundation, which is one of the largest funders of social entrepreneurs in the world. 3,500 people applied for the fellowship. Only 50 people received it. Did not think I would get through any of the 3 rounds. Ended up getting through all 3 and receiving that fellowship. We were the first veteran service organization to ever get the award. I was the only graduating college student to get to the award. And it really provided us with the footing and me with the opportunity to work on this full time after graduation and see where we can take it and to reach the eventual vision of kind of building these arts communities for veterans around the country in a similar way to what Team Red, White, and Blue is doing for physical activity.
And with a government and finance degree, it only makes sense that you go into comedy.
Yes. Everyone, I think if you're from DC, a lot of people joke about the fact that the DC Improv is the only full-time comedy club in the city, and there's clearly a lot more to joke about. So someone else got to start a comedy club, I guess.
So who is eligible for the programs that your organization has?
Good question. So our programs are open to all veterans, regardless of generation, regardless of combat experience or mental health background. It's open to active duty service members, and it's open to the military family members of veterans over the age of 18.
Love that. Many organizations are starting to include the family members, and I think that it's a great move that it helps to strengthen that family and that ultimately helps the veteran even more.
Yeah, I mean, we had one of the women in our writing group actually wrote a story called Deployment. It Happens at Home Too. And it really touched on the fact that deployment isn't just a challenge for those who are deployed. It's also a huge challenge for the family back home. And so we understand that. And we try to have a pretty good mix of veterans and family members in the classroom because there's so much relatability that can come through that. And obviously the healing that could come through that as well.
And what areas are you currently serving?
Geographic?
Right.
Yes. So right now we are based in 2 locations, 2 different regions. We're in Hampton Roads, based out of the College of William and Mary. So that serves everywhere as far west, actually a little further west than Richmond, and as far east as Norfolk, Virginia Beach.
Okay.
So pretty big area down there for the military. And then we're up in Washington, D.C. Our university partner up here is Georgetown University, but we also do programs out of the DC Improv for a comedy class, the Writer Center for a writing class, and a place called the 296 Project for our ceramics class that we do.
Oh, wow. That's great. And do you have plans to expand into other areas?
Yeah. And so at the current state, we're looking at expanding our comedy boot camp class within the next year. It's our curriculum for that program has developed very well, and it's at the point where it is scalable because for everything that we do, our focus is not just providing that 8 to 12 week of support, but also making sure that there's an alumni opportunity for those who want to continue with the craft. So for comedy, we've been able to structure it as such that we have a good, solid curriculum for 8 weeks, and then we have a defined follow-up with monthly workshopping or feedback sessions for the comics to work on their material amongst a kind of a trusting community of fellow veterans. We have open mic partnerships that we establish in the local areas that allow for 4 or 5 slots per week for veteran comics to get stage time, and we've developed a mentorship program linking young comics to comics who are 10, 15 years down the road and may have military experience. So we're looking to scale that out because it's the furthest developed, and also because we've seen demand-wise nationally, we've had huge demand for people to bring the program to new areas.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And yeah, that definitely answers some of my other questions about what happens after the program ends. Are you just kind of done? But it's awesome that you follow up and you keep the veteran plugged into the comedy scene.
Yeah, it's one of the things that we philosophically believe is important. We think the great veteran service organizations right now that are focused on community building are doing so in a way that there's that long-term engagement. So the mission continues with their service platoons, does an excellent job of just making sure that people have this consistent opportunity to get together, get out of the house, continue to develop themselves. Same thing with Team Red, White, and Blue. And we see us, kind of fitting in along that line. But we think the additional benefits is that we're also potentially enabling people to heal in a way that maybe wouldn't necessarily come just from community service. And this long-term engagement has already borne fruit. We have 10 writers in our Hampton Roads writing group alone who were never published before they joined the writing group, and now have since in just a year have gotten publishing, have been able to been published, and whether it's through a journal, an op-ed, or a real publishing deal. So, this long-term commitment has, impactful for the people involved.
And so for the writing, is it just one specific style of writing? Is it just for articles, or are you doing all kinds of different things?
So we're writing right now. We've done introductory level classes. Our focus across the board is beginner level, because that's where we think we can make the most difference in the classroom. But then in the writing group sessions, we break that down between genre focus. So we're doing a program, for example, in March with Maurice. I'm sure you know Maurice.
Absolutely.
One of the most incredible veteran writers of this generation, who's doing a playwriting workshop. So we're inviting a lot of veteran playwrights from around the East, or aspiring veteran playwrights from around the East Coast, to come and participate in that. We also do writing group sessions, which allow people to really get that starting point. I just need somewhere to start. I want some prompts. I want the feedback on those prompts. And we've seen people actually have pieces that have been published that were started in those writing groups, and those are offered twice per month. And essentially where we think we're drawing the line is, once you're starting to the point of you're getting published and you're at the intermediate to more advanced level, that's when the community reintegration is a huge piece of it. And that's when it's important for you to maybe join the community writing group, right? And get that additional level. We don't really see ourselves getting to the point where we're providing MFA style workshops. Mm-hmm. But we do want to make sure that we're giving you that access and providing you that support to get to the point that you need to go.
Excellent. And you mentioned Maurice. I met him when we were ringing the bell at NASDAQ.
Awesome.
Was it a couple of years ago, 2 years ago? Yeah, great guy.
Yeah, probably one of the nicest people I've ever met. He's a busy guy, and he'll just send me emails with affirmations like, "You're doing a great job." And I'm like, "Thanks, Maurice. I needed that today."
Right at the right time. That's normally exactly when it comes. So if anybody listening right now could help your organization, what types of things do you need?
Well, you're involved in a nonprofit as well. So obviously if people have a fundraising interest, we are building our programs out, and we're looking for a chief programs officer to help with the program development right now. We're looking for funding to sustain the programs beyond 2017. But we're also looking for great, passionate artists to support from instructors or teacher assistants roles to really engage with veterans, and potentially if they have the teaching experience and background in the areas that we cover, to use that in a service-oriented way and help veterans who are getting started.
Oh, very cool. Do you take on volunteers?
Yeah, so we have over 50 volunteers between Hampton Roads and Washington, D.C., and they do everything from, coordinating the logistics, making sure that everyone gets to the right place at the right time, to the teacher assistant type roles, facilitating writing group sessions, if they are qualified, sitting in on the comedy boot camp classes and providing feedback for people's jokes and material. So we focus on volunteer engagement as in the same way we focus on the engagement of our participants. We want it to be something deep, not, show up one day, get a t-shirt and leave. We really want people to be invested in our communities in the same way.
So you're saying that there's opportunities for people to volunteer and get a free comedy show, is what you're saying?
Yes, a free comedy show. We offer comedy shows and not t-shirts. We're still waiting on our first t-shirt. So maybe in the long run, that could be a carrot on the end of the stick.
Nice. Okay, so if you could kind of just discuss what a vet would expect from coming onto your music program.
Sure. So our music program is really, again, focused at the beginner level. So I'll walk you through a guitar class. You would probably hear about the guitar class through one of the 4 media that we promote. A veteran service organization. We refer all the way from Veterans of Foreign Wars through Mission Continues Team RWV, covering all generations. Your local college veteran service officer if you're at university, or the Department of Veterans Affairs, or your local base. Finally, we flyer the crap out of coffee shops in case you wanted to see that as well. So you would hear about that. If you were interested, you would apply. We then have an application review process because we don't like to do first come, first serve. We think that's not necessarily fair to people who just find out later. It's really focused on in an application. We have a big question: is why are you interested in the guitar and learning guitar? What are you hoping to accomplish? And we base a lot of our admission on that question. If you were to get admitted, you'd be enrolled in the class, and so day one, we would give you a guitar. Everyone in the class receives a guitar. So long as they complete the class, they're able to keep that guitar. Again, we want to teach you how to fish and then give you a mechanism through which you can continue to fish, give you that fishing rod. So you get the guitar on day one. Our instructor would then go through the basics, really holding a guitar, learning how to hold a pick. Then we would get into chord progressions and things along those lines, the beginner level pieces. And by the time you leave that 10-week class, it's our hope that you have at least the beginner tools to begin to learn the guitar and develop on the guitar yourself. We then, when you would graduate from that class, we do a little group show. We understand that 10 weeks is not going to be, you're not going to be on stage doing a world tour, but we do a group show so you can play some songs for family and friends. After that, we have essentially monthly jam sessions and one-on-one sessions. And so
nice.
On a Saturday afternoon, you'll be able to come to a place and come to the guitar venue, usually at the college's music building, and essentially reserve a one-on-one slot with one of our teacher's assistants, and they'll help you with what you're working on. At the point that you're ready to practice songs, if there's other people there with whom you want to work on a song, you could start to do that as well. So we try to, again, give that monthly opportunity for people to continue to learn and develop.
Very cool. Very cool. As far as visual arts, I know that that's the other program that you mentioned. What type of instruction do you guys offer there?
So, yeah, our visual arts program is just starting up. We're working with a wonderful woman named Jackie Jones. She's one of the creative arts therapists at Fort Belvoir's NICO. We don't do an art therapy program there. She's also a licensed art instructor. So our program is actually working with clay and hand building right now. And so a lot of our work is focused on giving people the techniques and the skills to, work with their hands on that clay. We're going to be exploring what the curriculum looks like after this class. Whether are we going to perform are we going to pursue in the visual arts something along the lines of painting and drawing, because that might be more scalable than clay and hand building. That's still to be determined. But right now, our first visual arts class up in DC is working with clay and hand building.
Gotcha. And I also noticed when I was digging through the website, trying to research as much as I could about your organization, I noticed that you have a lot of partners that seem to tie with some venues that you guys are using. How has that helped your organization?
So venue partnerships are incredible. We've gotten over $15,000 worth of in-kind space donations from William & Mary. They've allowed us to host basically 3 or 4 classes per semester there for the last 3 semesters. So that's just huge in allowing us to save some money and really focus on the instruction and the curriculum and not have to worry about the building. But then what we found is that the local community wants to engage with veterans and often wants to engage with veterans through the arts, and they just don't know how. And I'm sure you've seen the same thing with the Veterans Artist Program. They're really interested in engaging. So, we have places like the DC Improv who are offering up their space for us to do our whole stand-up comedy class there for 8 weeks.
That's insane.
Then it's amazing. And then they're allowing us to do a show on a Thursday night for the graduation. We've done readings on D-Day at the Pressler Museum of Art in Norfolk, which is this beautiful museum. And Ron Capps came down and did a reading with us. And then 5 of our veteran writers read. We had everyone from someone who just got back from Afghanistan to one of our writing group members who served in the 4th Marine Division on Iwo Jima, and who were able to read at that event. And then every day, new places are coming out of the woodwork trying to offer their space up to us. So we really view venue partnerships as integral to the work that we're doing in our current areas and in the long run in the new areas to which we'll expand.
Awesome. And before we get into the final 3 questions, I just was curious if you had any success stories that you wanted to share from any of the different programs that you guys offer?
Yeah, I'll give you my two favorite stories so far. First, I'll start with comedy. A guy in our class named Scott Farley. He's a U.S. Marine Corps veteran, served multiple deployments in Iraq and Afghanistan. And prior to the class, he, admittedly was suffering from pretty severe PTSD, was not leaving his house, and was struggling with, suicidal ideation on a daily basis. He heard about us through one of the VSO referrals, and he jumped on it. He jumped on the opportunity to enroll in comedy boot camp, signed up for the class, lived an hour 45 minutes from Williamsburg, but every Saturday afternoon he drove to the class to engage in stand-up comedy. And what he's told us, that the class wasn't just life-changing for him, but it was also life-saving. It significantly reduced his PTSD symptoms, but more than that, he said, it gave him a new sense of purpose and identity. He said, every day I was at home, I was like with myself, kind of taking the old stereotypical, unfortunately, disabled veteran, ideas like I'm down in the dumps. He says he finally feels like he has a voice as a comedian, and that's one of his purposes in addition to serving his family. And so that's just been incredible. He's been doing the open mic scene in DC and Hampton Roads on a weekly basis. He's performed in 2 of our shows since our graduation show, and you've just seen an absolute transformation in him from week 1 through week 8. So those are the kind of things that we've seen through comedy.
Wow.
In writing, I mentioned briefly Joe Bruni, who is the World War II veteran who served in Iwo Jima. He joined our writing group, I guess, came to the first session, so October of 2014, and he was coming to every single session. And at that point in time, it wasn't yet the 70th anniversary of Iwo Jima, but he kept telling us every session, he's like, I'm 92 years old, I'm living to see the 70th anniversary. Comes to February of 2015, when it was the 70th anniversary, and he comes down with a pretty severe case of bronchitis. It was going to be honored at Quantico and then up at the Iwo Jima Memorial in Arlington, and unfortunately couldn't make it, and he was just destroyed. So our writing group put together a special little mini Iwo Jima Memorial writing group session for him in March of 2015. We did a whole ceremony for him. It was really cute. And CNN came to document that.
Oh, wow.
That was super. Alone, it was very cool to have his story broadcast on CNN. But after his story was captured on CNN, it was played Memorial Day weekend, throughout the weekend on the main network. And his poem that was covered was about his best friend from Iwo Jima, or his best friend from Brooklyn, who he grew up with, who lived across the street, who then served with him in the 4th Marine Division in Iwo Jima. And it was essentially a poem about survivor's guilt. The crux of it was Joe went to Iwo Jima, served in the 4th Marine Division, came home alive. His best friend, Joe Esposito, was killed on the island. And it was about, why did I survive and you were left behind? So that story was broadcast Memorial Day weekend. Flash forward 5 days later, I get a Facebook message from a guy named Joe Fantozzi. And he says, my name's Joe Fantozzi. I'm the nephew of Joe Esposito. We saw the story on CNN, and we would like to connect with Joe Bruni.
Wow.
This was 50 years late since the last time that they had ever connected, because Joe moved actually to Germany to teach, and he just lost touch with the family. So I said, hey, this was the week before the D-Day reading at the Chrysler Museum. I said, hey, Joe's going to be reading on D-Day in Norfolk. You should come down. They lived in Queens. They ended up driving down to Norfolk from Queens and surprising Joe at the D-Day reading.
Oh, he didn't know they were coming.
No, because I didn't want to tell him.
Oh, that's so perfect.
Get him excited if they didn't show up. But they did. And in the morning, Ron Capps led a writing group session. And in the afternoon, we did the reading. In between, the Esposito showed up. They brought a portrait with them that was the portrait Joe Bruni painted of Joe Esposito when he returned home. And it was hanging in the house of the Espositos for the next 60-something years. They brought that portrait with them. And then they also brought a scrapbook of all the letters that Joe Esposito and Joe Bruni had sent back home when they were at Iwo Jima. And so this is and it still gets better. And so Joe Bruni still doesn't know the Espositos are there, but he sees this this scrapbook of letters, and you got to imagine it's like all this old writing, and Joe's immediately drawn to it. He opens it up. He starts reading the letter. He goes, "Oh, this is old handwriting." And then he's like, "Wait, this is my handwriting." And then he goes, "This is my letter," and starts pounding his chest. Wow. It was the letter he wrote to the Esposito family telling them that their son had been killed in action, and that essentially the lie he told about the fact that the son did not suffer. It was his first time reading it since he wrote it while he was in the Pacific. And so he started crying. I was next to him. I was the only other person in the room. I started crying. And flash forward 15 minutes, the Espositos walk in, and he just goes and hugs them, and they hug for like 5 minutes straight. So that was the best story of the group and of my life. And so I don't know if it'll ever be topped, but that's what I got.
That is so incredibly powerful. That's amazing how that all came together.
No words for that.
Wow. And going back to the first story that you told, which was also extremely powerful, I think that you're exactly on the right track there. I think that veterans who are suffering alone at home by themselves, if they only have something that excites them enough that they wake up in the morning like excited to do, it's going to go a long way to improving them. And like you said, once he had something that was giving him that energy to wake up to in the morning, it completely moved his life in a different direction.
Yeah, and we've seen that with others as well. That was just one story, but you've seen through these programs. And I like looking at people's LinkedIn before and after they participate in the class, because what you often see is, veteran or X% disabled veteran, which I hate to see on a LinkedIn profile, to comedian, writer. That's the change in identity. That's the change in the purpose that you're talking about. And it's that one thing, whether it's you become a triathlete by participating in Team Red, White, and Blue, or you become, serving your community through Mission Continues. It's that renewed sense of purpose that I think is so important after people leave the military.
Absolutely. It's almost like, okay, my identity is gone. I hung it up when I took the dog tags off. Now what do I do?
Exactly. And I can't speak to this, obviously, because I am not a veteran. I didn't serve, but at least what I hear is there's a lot of, there's a pretty big onboarding process in turning you into the Marine or the soldier. But unfortunately, on the back end, it's not as intensive. And so sometimes, that's where us as community actors, as veteran service organizations can come in and help with that transition back.
Wow. Yeah, I do get that a lot from organizations that I talk to, that it's so recognizable that people are, that they spend so much time becoming a soldier or becoming a Marine, or it's where we are really good at creating warriors. It's the turning them back into what they were before. That's where we are extremely lacking.
I agree.
Well, I think we covered a lot about your organization, and I'm sure there's so much more going on with your organization. How can people get in contact and get plugged in?
So very easy. We're on all the social channels. We have a website. Our website is asap.org, asap.org. You can go on there. We have a sign-up section. It includes the applications to all of our classes. It includes information on how to volunteer, how to host a fundraiser, how to just get involved in general. So go on there. We have a Facebook page, Armed Services Arts Partnership. We're on Facebook. On Twitter, we are at ASAP_vets. And you can also find us on LinkedIn if you're interested in all of our professional engagements.
Awesome. And I will make sure that I put links to all of those in the show notes to make it super easy for people to get to. And
great. Thank you.
Also, you're in the VAP community.
Yes. And I unleashed the floodgates by putting all of our writing group members in there. So if anyone's posting photos of their grandchildren, let me know, and I will tell them that it's strictly for the arts.
Yeah, we've got a pretty thriving community there, and it's great seeing posts from all different types of people doing all different types of art.
Well, I tell you, an incredibly symbiotic relationship for the work that we're doing, because we're really getting people when they're just starting. They're at the beginner level, they're just exploring their creative side and getting involved. And what the VAP community does, I think, is amplify their work once they are moving along. And that's such an important part of the process, is not just step 1, 2, and 3, but what do you do when you're looking to pursue this further? So thank you for creating that. I refer every veteran artist I know to it now to make sure that they're involved.
Yeah, I do see your name coming through a lot. I really appreciate it.
I'll slow it down if you want me to.
No, please don't. All right. I think we're ready to get into the final 3.
Okay, let's do it.
All right. Question number 1. Who would you like to hear on a future episode of the Veteran Resource Podcast?
So one of the nonprofits that I'm most excited about in the veteran space early stage is a group called Vet Impact. They are working to take the skills of veterans who had worked in developing countries and place them as entrepreneurs in those developing countries to re-stimulate some of those economies. You kind of think of their work as similar to the work that what Combat Flip-Flops or what Rumi Spice is doing, using their development experience to revitalize those economies and really create peace through trade. So I'm a big fan of that. They're still at the very early stages, but I think they're incredibly exciting and have a great future ahead of them.
That sounds like a really cool organization, and I would absolutely love to get them on the show, find out more. All right, question number 2. What upcoming project has you fired up right now?
So we are hosting a comedy show in New York City at Gotham Comedy Club, one of the top comedy clubs in the country, on Wednesday, March 30th. And it's incredible because we're going to have 3 of our alumni of Comedy Boot Camp go perform on stage at this legendary comedy club. And then we're going to have a guy named PJ Walsh, who's a U.S. Navy veteran who has toured to over 20 different countries and entertaining the troops, was part of the Blue Collar Comedy Tour, has done his own one-man show, and he's going to headline that show. So we can it's going to be a really incredible way to show where they are right now and where they're going and see that all on one stage. So we're really excited for that.
Wow, that sounds great. Okay, question number 3, the brain stretcher.
Oh, jeez.
If you woke up tomorrow and you found out that somebody made an anonymous donation of $10 million to your organization, what would you do with it?
So I think as the nonprofit manager I am right now, I would invest in making sure that we got the best people on board, because the only way that we would be able to scale and reach our vision of creating these supportive communities for veterans in the arts around the country is making sure that we have the infrastructure in place to support those communities. And so, step 1 is in investing in the best people possible. I think step 2 is we need to bring in a bit more research to attach to all of our lines of work to prove what I think a lot of us know, which is the healing elements of the arts and how the arts can be healing even outside of the setting that is traditionally, in the hospitals. And I think thirdly, we would want to make sure that we are investing in support for program development, because as the organization will grow with $10 million, thank you to the anonymous donor, the needs of our veterans are going to evolve, and we want to be able to as effectively do that as possible. So I guess I look at this from a pragmatist perspective, and also for someone who every day feels like they're doing 3 jobs when they should be doing 1. But I would really invest in resources so that we can provide for our veterans across the country in a sustainable way.
Well, I would absolutely love to see your organization grow and spread across the country. And so for that person that has the $10 million,
please,
they're looking for a great place to put it. Sam just told you where to donate it. How does that person or anybody else that wants to give donations to your organization, how do they get in contact with you?
So again, I take emails directly. Email me right at sam@asapasap.org. If you're interested in smaller donations, we also have a donate page on our website. That's asapasap.org. And then you go to the donate section. So myriad ways to give, whether through financially or through with your time or your resources. So we're always looking to engage people who are passionate about this work.
Very cool. And with me being so close to DC, I might have to jump in on some of your programs you have going on.
You're always invited if you want to do some playwriting with Maurice. That's coming up. I'd happy to have you at our comedy show to check us out. And, maybe you got a comedy career in your future. We can enroll you in a class.
You never know. You never know.
You never know. You got a great voice for it.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Sam, it has been awesome talking with you tonight.
Likewise.
And I look forward to getting more plugged in with your organization and talking to you more inside the VAP community.
Well, thank you so much for the invitation on your show this evening. And again, really looking forward to working with you and so many of the other incredible organizations in the veteran space and in the arts space through the Armed Services Arts Partnership.
Excellent. Excellent. You have a great night.
Likewise. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to episode 45. I hope you enjoyed it, and make sure that you get over to the show notes at veteranpodcast.com/045, and you will find all of the links there to get you over to Sam and get you plugged into Armed Services Arts Partnership, which I'm sure that is exactly what you want to do after listening to this episode. So head on over there. That's all I have for this week. We will see you in episode 46.